As the lights come on in Washington following the government shutdown, the lights go out in Ukraine. And they're going out on one of the most innovative weapons in the last couple of decades that only costs about $50,000 a piece. Let's look into this. Lights out in Ukraine, prices up in Europe. As the fourth winter of war approaches, Russia is destroying Ukraine's energy grid faster than it can be rebuilt. We lost everything we were restoring, Centranego, one of Ukraine's largest power operators, said on Facebook following a devastating weekend assault that reduced the country's energy capacity to zero. Since Sunday, most of Ukraine has been plunged into intermittent darkness as the government schedules rolling blackouts to preserve what little power remains. Russian drones and missiles have pummeled power plants and substations and gas infrastructure in a relentless campaign that has intensified as temperatures drop. And on a daily basis, you can see the maps provided by the Ukraine Defense showing the launch points and impact points of Russian missiles and drones. And the Ukrainians do a great job of shooting down as many as they possibly can. However, the air defense systems are not holding up. How do I know this? Because the Secretary of State says so himself. This is from Anticor. This is a Ukrainian website. Rubio. Russia destroys air defense systems transferred to Ukraine within a week after delivery. That is an astonishing statement. A week after delivery, the air defense systems are destroyed. This is a serious problem if you're NATO, and you need to be paying very close attention to that. But is that statement true? Well, there's video of the Secretary of State saying it himself.
That's why we've been in discussions with them about defensive weapons to be able to protect their grid. And I know we've been in ongoing technical conversations about the specific equipment they need. But ultimately, if that equipment is ultimately destroyed a week later after it's installed, that remains a problem. And that's been the history the last 2 or 3 years. That's why we've been in discussions with them about defensive weapons to be able to protect their grid. And I know we've been in ongoing technical conversations about the specific equipment they need. But ultimately, if that equipment is ultimately destroyed a week later after it's installed, that remains a problem. And that's been the history the last 2 or 3 years.
Destroyed within a week or two after installed. And what's destroying these? Obviously, when you bring in a Patriot missile system, it's going to be very difficult to destroy that system. But if you swarm it, and if you swarm any air defense system, eventually it's going to run out of ammunition and be destroyed. This is what's happening with the entire air defense system and the power grid in Ukraine. And it's all happening from a $50,000 drone that is now being built in the thousands. This article is out of Defense Blog. Russia ramps up Shahed drone production. Russia's drone industry has unveiled the scale of its growing production of Shahed-style attack drones, further signaling its intent to intensify strikes on Ukraine. Russia is preparing to launch up to 2,000 drones simultaneously against Ukraine, said Bundeswehr Major General Christian Freuding. In an interview, Freuding noted that Ukraine's current air defenses, including U.S.-supplied Patriot missile systems, are not optimized for countering drone swarms of this magnitude. 2,000 drones simultaneously. That is astonishing. And there's virtually no way to really defend against that. The Ukrainians have drone teams that go out and hunt these Shahed 136, which are now called Geran 2. It states here, is described production of Geran 2, a local version of the Shahed 136, which has been modernized, improved, Its capabilities have been absolutely run out. It's used for reconnaissance, strike, electronic warfare, you name it. That these things have become absolutely indispensable on the modern battlefield. According to reports, Russia is now producing approximately 170 Shahed-type drones per day, with plans to increase output to 190 by the end of 2025. This surge enables Moscow to launch large-scale drone attacks, which Ukrainian and Western analysts warn could overwhelm Kyiv's air defense systems. And as we just heard from the Secretary of State himself, it is. Because we can't install an air defense system that lasts more than 2 weeks. And Kyiv has no power, according to their major power production company. Again, highlighting their point. A devastating weekend assault that reduced the country's energy capacity to zero. And this is going to happen night after night after night. So what is this weapon? What is the Shahed 136? Well, we've all seen them attacking Israel. We've seen them attacking the videos attacking them. But it's being underestimated how absolutely game-changing this cheap drone is. Its capabilities and its uses are expanding almost daily on the Ukraine battlefield. Ukraine themselves are now utilizing Shahed 136 drones, the same style. And in this article from the War Zone, this article is from February 2024. What does a Shahed 136 really cost? The price of a Shahed 136 drone is reportedly leaked documents far exceeds previous estimates, but it's what Russia is really paying, which I find very interesting, and we're going to go into that a little bit. But it breaks it down to an approximate cost because this is clearly unknown. And very interesting how they paid for the license on this. Regardless, a unit cost of around $50,000 would seem quite realistic based on everything we know about the Shahed 136 and how they are made, with that price being further reduced and substantially over time. Russia transferred more than 2 million grams of gold to Iran as part of these deals, the publication says. Once again, we don't know the final terms of the deal for certain or what it actually included. Gold. They did a transaction in gold. Outside the dollar system, outside the brick system, gold. Don't ever let anyone tell you that gold and silver isn't actually currency. You're seeing it right there. But that's a side note. But whatever the Russians are paying per unit, the end of the article, I think really, again, this is February of 2024. The end of this article really puts it all into perspective. As it sits, we really don't know the exact cost of Shahed 136 drones, but as Russia has invested very heavily in their production, the unit price will drop and the drones will be made more capable. So, no matter how much these drones cost Russia, they cost Ukraine a whole lot more. And when you're talking about the power being out in Ukraine in November, we aren't even into December, January, or February yet. It's going to be a long, long, cold winter in the Ukraine. And most of that is because of the Shahed 136 or the Geran 2. And the United States needs to desperately get in this game. It's not just me saying this. On September 12th, the war zone came out and said the exact same thing from Tyler Rogaway himself. U.S. needs to be building tens of thousands of Shahed 136 clones right now. The U.S. military's lack of urgency when it comes to building long-range, one-way attack munitions at a huge scale has been absurd and dangerous, and I completely agree. I completely agree. There is an interest in it now, growing in the Pentagon. You can see Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is examining a low-cost, uncrewed combat attack system, or LUCAS, at the Pentagon July 16th, 2025. And, you know, the U.S. Pentagon, it's a low-cost thing that the Russians will probably get to about $20,000, and I'm sure that we in the United States can have at the low price of $200,000 or $300,000 to $400,000 per piece, because, you know, Lockheed and Boeing are things. That said, the United States needs to get into this game, and it needs to get into it right now. We are seeing the results of it in the Ukraine as we speak. Thousands and thousands of drones have been used to basically eliminate the entire power grid of the nation of Ukraine. And at $50,000 per unit, with that cost dropping, that's a very efficient way of doing war. Who would have thunk that an itty-bitty little, what almost looks like an RC airplane with a 90 to 100-pound payload would essentially change modern warfare? And it has. That doesn't even go into the FPVs or the other drone systems, which I'm going to link at the end of this. If you've stayed till now, I thank you and I appreciate you. And I'm going to link at the end of this. Drones, the new machine gun. Great presentation by Colonel John Antel. He's phenomenal. But I wanted to bring this to you. Ukraine's in for a long, cold winter, and if we don't pay attention, this is the future. Thanks.